Hey everyone, let's wait a minute or so that people will join. I think we can start. Hello everyone, welcome to the July edition of our Detection Highlights webinar. Great to have you with us as well. If this is your first time joining, quick intro to what this is all about. Every month we put together a snapshot of the latest detection updates from our sandbox platform, from our labs team. It's about new VMRay threat identifiers, VTIs, the abbreviation for that, the YARA rules, config extractors, and we're going to share some context around the threat activity we are seeing behind them. So the goal here isn't to really overwhelm with everything we have shipped, but to give you a focused look at what's new and how it can actually help in detection workflows, especially, and some clues around keeping an eye on evolving behavior. So I am R2. I'm a senior product marketing manager here, and I'm joined today by my colleague Serge, one of our senior product managers.
Hello,
Serge.
everybody.
Hello. He's been focusing especially on API integrations and connectors with other tools, and he will run a demo at the end on what we will cover today. So before we jump in, quick housekeeping notes again. So this webinar is being recorded, and we will send the recording and slides your way shortly after. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop them into the chat. We'll do a Q&A at the end. So yeah, that was about the housekeeping items. And with that, let's take a quick look at the what's on the agenda today. So here is what we've got lined up today. It's fairly standard structure. We'll start with the latest VTIs. And this month, a lot of the focus has been around fingerprinting discovery behavior that malware used to learn about the environment it's running in. Then we will move into YARA rule updates and config extractor additions. It's also including some support for some interesting families like Tofsee. I'm not good at spelling these, and SocGholish. And finally, I hand it over to Serge for a quick demo walkthrough just to show some of these updates in action. So let's start with a quick update to one of our discovery VTIs. If you're not familiar, discovery VTIs are mostly informational. So they highlight the behavior that's interesting, but not really automatically adding to the verdict if it is malicious. So typically it's scored 1 out of 5. So we already had VTIs in place. Just a little bit context around this. For reading registry, like install date or product ID, which are kind of also pretty common for software, typical software to query. But in a recent malicious sample, which was CryptBot sample, InfoStealer, we noticed it was also reading a few additional registry values under the OS section. So specific product name, installation type, the current build number, all about the operating system. So we now extended our logic to cover those as well, just to give, again, better visibility into how malware is profiling the system. It's landing on. If you're interested in this, I would suggest you check out MITRE's T1012 page. So there is a long list of malware. You will see what and how they query the registry. So I'm here also dropping the link to a CryptBot sandbox report. You can check out that as well. So next up is another VTI, again around discovery. This one is all about checking whether a device is joined to a Windows domain. This came in from actually one of our customers as a request, and it's a good example of how kind of malware or threat actors think. If a device is not joined to a domain, the malware might just skip it, terminates the process, and not really thinking like worth the effort. But if it is part of a domain, it signals, of course, it's also important which domain it's connecting to, but it signals there could be access to a broader environment, or more juicy, more valuable data. There are a few ways to check for that info, and one of them is via the Windows API call, as you can see here, net get join information. So we now added monitoring for that alongside other known techniques. Again, this is a like discovery level signal, a low score, but useful context. So you're looking at the full behavior profile. So if you're interested in how this works under the hood, I will drop a link to some good Windows internals documentation in the follow-up in the resources section. Also, here is a real example of an info stealer, SalatStealer, this is called, and function logs from the sandbox report. I mean, the behavior is highlighted. Honestly, I'm not a fan of screenshots, so I'm going to share the link to the actual report in the follow-up notes that you can also see here. So you can go ahead, check out yourself whenever you want. All right. The last VTI of the day is an improved VTI focused on a very common tool like systeminfo, exe. So this command provides detailed system information, all stuff like that's useful during profiling. And we saw this recently in an info stealer sample again, which was MetaStealer, to be concise. So it's one of those commodity info stealers that's still, very active. And in that case, we already had solid detection in place. I mean, we caught it with VTIs, YARA hits, and we pulled out the exfiltration URL via the config extractor. So what we are flagging now is actually when it gets executed indirectly by being spawned from another process, which is a bit more suspicious. So the score is not 1, but 2. As I mentioned in the first VTI, it's typically 1, but since this is kind of hidden, it's 2, although it's still a discovery VTI. Also looking at the process map here on the slide, in this case, the process, spawned process seems to be install util. So it's kind of an example of how LOLBin, living off the land binaries work. And this is one of the VTIs around that. So it made sense for us to improve the existing VTI, again, for good visibility. I will drop a link to the sandbox report as you can see here, so you can check it out in more detail. So that was it about VTIs. So let's move on to the YARA rules, config extractors. Like we are going to take a quick look at YARA rule updates. As always, our labs team has added dozens of new rules this month. So we don't have time to go through all of them, but I will call out a couple of highlights. First, we mentioned SalatStealer earlier in the context of the domain, joint domain check. So it's been showing increased activity lately. As we are on increased activity, one other highlight I picked from this list is ModiLoader. Especially it's targeting SMBs with some recent campaign, targeting especially East and South Europe. So we added YARA rules to help track and classify these ones more effectively. The other one I want to speak a bit about, it sounds really cool, Darkula. So there is no spelling error here, not Dracula, but Darkula AI phishing kit. So there has been some great public research on this, so I will again drop the link to the resource. What's interesting is how they're using Gen AI to build tailored phishing pages, like custom login forms, better spoofing of brands, so that sort of thing. So yeah, a good reminder again that YARA plays a huge role, not just in detecting executable sample, but also phishing kits. So at this point, actually, I would like to turn to Serge. Serge, I mean, speaking about the different use cases of YARA, what it can detect, well, what would you say about that? So do you have any extra updates around YARA detections we added very recently?
Yeah, I think we always had a lot. What is nice is to see how we can detect things not only on the sample that is submitted, but also on the result of dynamic analysis. So, I mean, when I will show the demo, you will see that there is a lot of things we picked up on the YARA, and we don't rely on a single source. So,
I think one other use case could be, Serge. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the finding the exploits, like web shells.
yes. Yes, you are referring to the SharePoint.
All right. Can you give us more context around it?
Well, I think people probably heard about it, but SharePoint had a very bad vulnerability that has been partially patched, and it has been exploited by probably a lot of threat actors, but especially Chinese threat actor has been active there. And now it's a big source of data exfiltration, and it's a major effort to try to patch it. And what's very nice is that our lab team has been able to quickly create a YARA rule to detect that. So I will briefly show that. So we now have a YARA rule in place, so we can
YARA rule to detect the web shell, right?
Exactly.
All right. Yeah, that sounds amazing. So yeah, we love YARA. That's kind of the conclusion. So we're gonna move on to the config extractors. So I will pass it over to Serge for the demo, but quick notes on two new config extractors on our end. So first up is SocGholish, also known as FakeUpdates for a reason. So it spreads typically via compromised, hacked websites, often poorly secured WordPress installs. So when a user lands on one of these infected sites, they're typically redirected to a fake browser update page and then tricked into downloading a zip file. This one hasn't shown up much really in public repos like Malware Bazaar, as you can see here on the recent screenshot, but it was actually listed as one of the top 10 threats by our friends at Red Canary. And in some cases, SocGholish has been a precursor to ransomware deployment, like the one written here, RansomHub. So definitely a good one to keep on the radar. I mean, Serge will walk us through a sample of that in a moment. So, and the next one is Tofsee, a Trojan that's been like around for at least 5 years. We saw a peak in activity around April this year, and then it kind of quieted down again. It's usually used to like recruit infected systems like into attack infrastructure. So those systems can be used in a DDoS attack, or it can be used for crypto jacking purposes as well to mine cryptocurrency. So both of these now have full config extraction support in the sandbox. So with that, I would like to pass it on to my colleague Serge for the demo.
Thank you. So let me quickly share my screen. Okay, so actually I will first show Tofsee. And to detonate Tofsee, what I did was just to put it in my VM environment protected by Defender. I've been showing a demo of our Defender integration a few months ago. Now it's fully in production. And in that case, when Defender got a Tofsee sample, it created an alert which is called WAC attack. So it did identify it a bit differently than we did. And when you open the alert, what you can find is that VMRay is actually providing more info here. And there's one interesting sound to show you. Okay, so here is VMRay verdict, of course, a link to the sample, classification, threat name, so you can see it's Tofsee, and all the VTIs that we are going to see in more details through our console. But as I scroll down, you will see that there is a second sample that was analyzed. And the reason is that in that case, it was a recursive analysis. So we got two different samples. The first one, which was actually this one. Sorry, the first one, I will pick it from here. So here you can see that the first sample was actually a zip file. And we only then had a static analysis. And that was enough to pick up basically from the YARA rule, we could see that actually it was a Tofsee malware. We could see it from the embedded file. The AV picked it up as well, so we can have proper diagnostic. But of course, what is interesting is we have all the analyses in the child sample. So we detonate it recursively. And here we're going to find much more information because here we're going to have all the dynamic analysis. So here again, you can see it's Tofsee. Now it's an exe, not anymore a SIP. And now you can see a long list of VTI. And one difference I want to highlight that when you use YARA, we use it, of course, on the sample file, but also on the result of the dynamic analysis. So you can see that we saw Tofsee in multiple places in the sample, in the memory dump, in code dump. So that's a pretty good match. We also extracted the configuration of Tofsee because that's a capability we just added. And you can see the malware configuration here. So now if you open it, you will see that it's using actually an IP address and a domain in Russia. And then, of course, our VTI show a lot of different behavior. And one thing is that the Tofsee try to avoid detection through process following, which is basically, we had some blog post about it, but it's a way to hijack another process. So you suspend it and then you try to hijack it. Okay, we got the other injection techniques, so writing memory of other process, modifying the flow. So all those are very good technique for malware to hide from AV detection. And other things pretty interesting. You can see that Tofsee tried to modify Windows Defender configuration. And of course, that's, I would say, the problem with Windows Defenders. They have such a big market share that the first thing that a malware will try to do is to avoid Defender and test against Defender. But as you notice here, I started the detonation from a VM protected by Defender. So in that case, Defender picked it up and blocked it, and then sent it to us. So that is our integration to that automatically. So also they tried to do it, and maybe at some point they tested it and it worked. Defender was quick to catch up and prevent that way around. Hiding track, and then the list continues. So when you open it, you can see that there are a lot of now discovery technique. So that's pretty interesting. Defense evasion, anti-analysis. And this technique actually is quite interesting. It's In that case, the malware try to sleep, which is quite typical to avoid sandbox, so we can skip that time. But they also try checking the patch chip, which means they try to check the time against the server to verify that they have not been in a sandbox and that the sandbox has not skipped the time for them. So that's also something we can capture. So hiding tracks, delaying execution, also modifying Windows again firewall configuration. So that's something that malware tend to do as they run on Windows. And then a lot of other VTI, which are, let's say, not by themselves a clear marker for malware, but when you see big combination of them in the context of a malware, is very interesting. So creating process with hidden window, installing system service for persistence, and so on and so on. And I think a good way to look at what a file is doing, like in a quick way, you can check the monitor process. So here you will see that it's starting a high number of process. But then I think the MidTray attack technique is really nice. In a very short time, you can see that what this malware is doing. So it's doing persistence, privilege escalation. It has a lot of focus on defense evasion, and then it's doing discovery. So this is really what they are trying to do. So now if we go a bit more in detail, we can check the communication of this malware. Okay, you can see the IP address it contacted and so on. But what I like to highlight in this case, it tried to communicate to a lot of URL related to email. So Microsoft Mail Protection, some Yahoo MTS server, some MXS from a Russian email system, it seems, SMTP, Google. So when you read some blog post about this malware, it tried to spread itself through email as well. And visibly is doing something like that. So it's pretty active there. Otherwise, you can, of course, see that the behavior is pretty interesting. Really, a lot of process started. And actually, you can really dig into the process, but now I don't think we have too much time to go in detail to what they are doing to every process. But if you have time, you can find it out. So we spoke about the AV and YARA rule, and just to highlight that both AV and YARA are not running only on the sample, but also the result of the dynamic analysis. So you see a lot of analysis of memory dump, code dump for both AV and YARA. So IOC, that's always very interesting. We put a lot of effort in trying to get the right IOC about a malware, avoiding false positive. For that reason, we provide now also a threat feed if you are interested. And here you can see the same IOC. You will find back, of course, the IP that was highlighted in the configuration extractor, the domain as well, and a number of files with their SHA. Okay, and now let's move on to the other malware. So first things I want to briefly show that is our live demo environment. So I'm just using a different instance of VMRay now. And here you see this web shell SharePoint. So that's just the SharePoint, the YARA rule we introduced recently related to the SharePoint vulnerability. So here you can see that it's an unknown file type. So we detonated only statically. So we don't get much information as we could from a dynamic analysis. But anyway, we detect it. And it's a big kudos to our lab team because that's pretty recent malware and pretty recent technique, and they have been able to introduce it quickly. So that's pretty nice. Otherwise, now I will jump to FakeUpdate or SocGholish sample. And actually here, what you see is that we get it clearly. We get it through YARA rule. We get it by extracting the configuration, which you can see here. So just a URL in that case. The AV picked it up, but basically not much more. So in that case, when we try to run this malware, it didn't do too much. And when you try to look what happened, you can check from the network. And what you find it here is basically it contacted its command and control server. It sent something, received something, and then it decided not to do anything more visibly. And of course, we don't know why. We can speculate, but there was, I think, in the blog post from Red Canary that R2 referred to, there was a mention that they have noticed that sometimes it does not activate itself. It seems to be quite a selective malware. So sometimes it decide for some reason that this type of environment is not interesting and it will not continue. So you can speculate what it might mean. So that is okay, maybe a little bit of a boring sample, but what I want to show you is one more sample. And just first, this other sample is coming from what we call our threat feed. That's public information. It's also information, by the way, if you are using our product that you can get from our main dashboard. So if you want to follow here, you get our threat feed, but you can also Google it and have access to it. And I think it has pretty interesting sample. Sometimes we put LinkedIn post about it or we blog about it. And you can see quite a lot. So now I'll show you that you cannot do everything here, but you can still get a lot of information. So first, why is this sample interesting? It's also a SocGholish sample or FakeUpdates. And here we found some Remco, and Remco is a quite popular remote access Trojan. It has been documented in different blog posts that SocGholish may download some remote access Trojan after it. It was typically not Remco, I didn't see mention of it. Mail pass view is also interesting. Mail pass view is it used to be, or it still is maybe a valid software that is used for email password recovery. But it seems also widely abused by threat actors to basically collect credentials. So here what you see some interesting VTI again, modifying operating system directory. And this one is quite interesting because here you can see actually what we detected with YARA and also where we detected it. And when you combine this information with basically the process view. So let me open. Yeah, here's the process view, sorry. With the process view, what you can see that SocGholish was initial malware downloaded, it was active here. And you will see that Remco and also MailPass view are active later in around this phase of the process tree. So you can have a good idea what happened, where and which malware play which part. In that case, we extracted the Remco configuration. And here what I want to show is that we do get the malware configuration that we find. And in that case, we find socket, we find encryption key, mutex, interval pass. So we can find different type of malware configuration. And here again, a lot of data collection. You can see exactly what it targets. A lot of obfuscation technique. And here you can see that the obfuscation are probably made by Remco because that's the one that is running in the PowerShell and Caspol exe. As well as the process hollowing. Again, similar to Tofsee, you see that the process hollowing and writing memory in another process, modify the flow of process. All are very similar technique to avoid detection. And as you can see, it has a long list of VTI. But to save time, we can go to see what it's doing from the MIT review. So again, privilege escalation, defense evasion, and then try to get credential and do a lot of discovery. So very active on the credential access discovery phase, collection, then something specific, some uncommon ports in the the command and control. And if you want to check the detail, actually, you can always open it and you can see from which VTI it matches. So you can drill down to the detail from the meet review as well. So Artu, how much time do I still have?
Still a couple of minutes, if you like, Serge.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe actually one last thing I want to highlight is that is a public report, and as you can see, you can get all the IOC. So when we post something which you think is interesting, I think it's quite a good idea to check which IOC we find, because we try to post recent malware, and you can get this information. Of course, that is a very manual way to get IOC. It's open, it's free. We also have a threat intel feed if you want, where we have a much more IOC of recent malware with context and so on, as a kind of Stix taxi server. So that's some other product we have, but it's not the topic here. I guess that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I would be happy to see if you have any question.
Amazing. Thank you, Serge. So really interesting insights you shared, and also appreciate that you kind of hesitated to speculate. So we didn't need really much more speculation. So, but that was really great insights. Thank you. Moving on, before we jump into the Q&A, just a quick reminder. Again, we will be sharing all the resources and links, like we mentioned during this session, including the sandbox reports, like relevant blog posts, MITRE pages, and we referenced today. So you will find it here. And keep an eye on your inbox for the follow-up email in a few days. So it will be all be in there. So yeah, I think we can move on to the Q&A. Let me check. I think here is one that came in. I believe this is for Serge, for you. You shared the Windows Defender dashboard. Actually, how we can see there, kind of, we had a clue on how VMRay can be integrated into Windows Defender in SOC workflows. So the question is, how quickly does the sandbox come back when it is triggered from the EDR?
How quickly? So our default time to analyze a malware sample is 2 minutes, but we need a bit of time to trigger to start the VM and so on. I will say it's about 3-4 minutes. We need a bit of time also to grab the file from Defender. So yeah, it is a matter of minutes. It's not very long.
Cool. And the second one, is there a way to link sandbox verdicts or indicators back into threat intel platforms? So we are trying to keep detection and intel like more aligned. So
yes. So for example, with Defender integration, when we analyze sample, we provide what I showed, the verdict as a comment, but we also provide the IOC into the threat intel platform of Defender, so into Defender indicator, and we provide there the alert ID that triggered the sample. So later, if you see that you get an alert from a threat indicator of Defender that came from VMRay, you can check the alert ID and you know actually where it came from. Also, with our new threat intel feed, we provide the context. So there you can get a lot of information where it come from, to which other IOC it is linked. We can get linked to reports and so on. So we try to provide as much context as possible.
yeah, I think it's good that you mentioned that one, Serge. And with regards to integrations, I think the best thing is really to be able to get some best practice, right? So with regards to these integrations and connectors. So on the paper, when we look at that, it looks all great practically, but it's good to see actually how is it's kind of working, how it is maintained. And so, I mean, feel free to reach out to Serge or us if you have any questions, if you're an existing customer. So we would be happy to share the best practices. that we learn from other customers, right, Serge?
Yeah, and also we'll be really happy to understand where exactly you want to connect and to see what do we have in that specific integration or
yeah,
or what
right.
is missing. And
yeah, all right. So that's all I think we have time for today. Just a couple of things before we sign off. If you're heading to B-Size Bournemouth in the UK on August 16th, we will be there. It's a great community event. I will be there. And of course, our next Detection Highlights webinar will be on September 30th. So you can mark your calendars now. As always, LinkedIn is a good place to find us. If you have feedback or ideas or email, for what you would like to see in future sessions, really feel free to reach out. Serge,
well, one last comment.
I
I noticed a question regarding CrowdStrike, and we have also a connector for CrowdStrike, which is similar, but you can contact me and I can give you more detail. Or it's also on GitHub.
Cool. It's good to know. Yeah. So with that, thanks again, everyone, and take care and see you next time.
Thank you, Etu. Bye-bye.
Thank you.